Good evening and welcome back to another episode of The Longing, where today we are going to be continuing to read The Golden Age by Kenneth Grahame. So, let's get going. One is apt, however, to misjudge the special difficulties of a situation, and the reception proved, after all, an easy and informal matter. In a trainful so uniformly bucolic, a tutor was readily recognisable, and his portmanteau had been consigned to the luggage cart, and his person conveyed into the lane, before I had discharged one of my carefully considered sentences. I breathed more easily, and, looking up at our new friend as we stepped out together, remembered that we had been counting on something altogether more arid, scholastic, and severe. A boyish, eager face and a petulant pince-nez. I know that word, but I can't remember how to pronounce it. Untidy hair, a head of constant quick turns like a robin's, and a voice that kept breaking into alto. These were all very strange and new, but not in the least terrible. He proceeded jerkily through the village, with glances on this side and that, and charming, and he broke out presently, quite too charming and delightful. I had not counted on this sort of thing, and glanced for help to Edward, who, hands in pockets, looked grimly down his nose. He had taken his line, and meant to stick to it. Meantime our friend had made an imaginary spyglass out of his fist, and was squinting through it at something I could not perceive. Excuse me. What an exquisite bit, he burst out. 15th century? No. Yes, it is. I began to feel puzzled, not to say alarmed. It reminded me of the butcher in the Arabian Nights, whose common joints, displayed on the shop front, took to a startled public the appearance of dismembered humanity. The man seemed to see the strangest things in our dull, familiar surroundings. Ah, he broke out again, as we jogged on between hedgerows. And that field now, backed by the downs, with the rain cloud brooding over it, that's old David Cox, every bit of it. That field belongs to Farmer Larkin, I explained politely, for of course he could not be expected to know. I'll take you over to Farmer Cox's tomorrow, if he's a friend of yours, but there's nothing to see there. Edward, who was hanging sullenly behind, made a face at me, as if to say, "What sort of lunatic have we got here?" "It has the true pastoral character, this country of yours," went on our enthusiast, "with just that added touch in cottage and farmstead, relics of a bygone art, which makes our English landscape so divine, so unique." Really, this grasshopper was becoming a burden. These familiar fields and farms, of which we knew every blade and stick, had done nothing that I knew of to be bespattered with adjectives in this way. I had never thought of them as divine, unique, or anything else. They were, well, they were just themselves, and there was an end of it. Despairingly I jogged Edward in the ribs, as a sign to start rational conversation, but he only grinned and continued obdurate. "You can see the house now," I remarked, presently, "and that's Selina chasing the donkey in the paddock. Or is it the donkey chasing Selina? I can't quite make out, but it's them anyhow." Needless to say, he exploded with a full charge of adjectives. "Exquisite," he rapped out, "so mellow and harmonious, and so entirely in keeping." I could see from Edward's face that he was thinking who ought to be in keeping. Such possibilities of romance now in those old gables. "If you mean the garrets," I said, "there's a lot of old furniture in them, and one is generally full of apples. And the bats get in sometimes under the eaves and flop about till we go up with hairbrushes and things and drive 'em out. But there's nothing else in them that I know of." "Oh, but there must be more than bats," he cried. "Don't tell me there are no ghosts. I shall be deeply disappointed if there aren't any ghosts." I did not think it worthwhile to reply, feeling really unequal to this sort of conversation. Besides, we were nearing the house when my task would be ended. Aunt Eliza met us at the door, and in the crossfire of adjectives that ensued, both of them talking at once, as grown-up folk have a habit of doing, we too slipped round to the back of the house and speedily put several solid acres between us and civilization, for fear of being ordered in to tea in the drawing-room. By the time we returned, our new importation had gone up to dress for dinner, so till the morrow, at least, we were free of him. Meanwhile, the March wind, after dropping a while at sundown, had been steadily increasing in volume, and although I fell asleep at my usual hour, about midnight, I was wakened by the stress and cry of it. In the bright moonlight, wind-swung branches tossed and swayed eerily across the blinds. There was rumbling in chimneys, whistling in keyholes, and everywhere a clamour and a call. Sleep was out of the question, and sitting up in bed, I looked round. Edward sat up too. "I was wondering when you were going to wake," he said. "It's no good trying to sleep through this. I vote we get up and do something." "I'm game," I replied. "Let's play at being in a ship at sea." The plaint of the old house under the buffeting wind suggested this naturally. "And we can be wrecked on an island or left on a raft, whichever you choose. But I like an island best myself, because there's more things on it." Edward, on reflection, negatived the idea. It would make too much noise, he pointed out. "There's no fun playing at ships unless you can make a jolly good row." The door creaked and a small figure in white slipped cautiously in. "Thought I heard you talking," said Charlotte. "We don't like it. We're afraid. Selina too. She'll be here in a minute. She's putting on her new dressing gown she's so proud of." His arms around his knees, Edward cogitated deeply until Selina appeared, barefooted and looking slim and tall in the new dressing gown. Then, "Look here," he exclaimed. "Now we're all together, I vote we go and explore." "You're always wanting to explore," I said. "What on earth is there to explore for in this house?" "Biscuits," said the inspired Edward. "Hooray! Come on," chimed in Harold, sitting up suddenly. He had been awake all the time, but had been shamming asleep, lest he should be fagged to do anything. It was indeed a fact, as Edward had remembered, that our thoughtless elders occasionally left the biscuits out, a prize for the night-walking adventurer with nerves of steel. Edward tumbled out of bed and pulled a baggy old pair of knickerbockers over his bare shanks. Then he girt himself with a belt, into which he thrust, on the one side a large wooden pistol, on the other an old single stick, and finally he donned a big slouch hat, once an uncle's, that were used for playing Guy Fawkes and Charles II up a tree in. Whatever the audience, Edward, if possible, always dressed for his parts with care and conscientiousness, while Harold and I, true Elizabethans, cared little about the mounting of the piece, so long as the real dramatic heart of it beat sound. Our commander now enjoined on us a silence deep as the grave, reminding us that Aunt Eliza, what do I normally say, usually slept with an open door, past which we had to file. "But we'll take the shortcut through the blue room," said the wary Selina. "Of course," said Edward approvingly. "I forgot about that. Now then, you lead the way." And with that, we come to the end of the reading. Excuse that yawn. So, we have indeed come to the end of the reading, and as ever, we are going to be ending the episode there. So, I will say my usual goodbyes of thank you very much for joining me today. I hope you all have a wonderful morning, evening, afternoon or night. No matter what time of day it is, I hope you all have a wonderful one of it. And as always, we will be back tomorrow for more of the longing. Goodbye.